Guess who got brands talking? Brandlive.co.za.
You're listening to Inside OUTA.
Welcome to Inside OUTA, our weekly podcast that gives you insight into how we at OUTA promote civil activism and active citizenship by tackling conversations that drive our democracy further. I'm your host, Benedette Boule, and today we have our Head of Marketing and Communications, Samantha Vanispin, who has recently joined the OUTA brand talking about all things brand and marketing. Welcome to the show, Samantha.
Thank you very much for having me.
So today we talk about OUTA's brand. Who is OUTA? What kind of brand it is? How should supporters be embodying our brand? Samantha will talk to us about why she joined OUTA and the vision she has for the OUTA brand going forward. Stay tuned.
Harnessing the power of talk radio. Brandlive.co.za.
Less corruption, more accountability. Stay tuned to Inside OUTA.
Sam, thank you for taking the time to speak to us.
Thank you.
Now, a little bit of background to our listeners. OUTA was established in February 2012 as a result of numerous calls for support to challenge and oppose the Sunrail e-tolls. By 2016, OUTA had started on a journey of expanding its mandate into other areas challenging tax abuse occurring at different levels of government. It has expanded to local government, and the latest and most notable work of OUTA can be seen through our submissions to the Zondo Commission of Inquiry into State Capture. Now, Sam, for the benefit of our listeners and supporters, please share with us who you are and why you joined OUTA.
So, I'm a communicator at heart. I have always been passionate about the fight against corruption and maladministration, and frustrated at the lack of things that I've been able to do as an individual. I'm also a mom, happily married, and I live on the East Rand. So, yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
You live in the East Rand?
Correct.
Doesn't one need a passport to go there?
Very funny. I believe you need a passport to get to Randburg.
Welcome to OUTA. In the short time that you've been with us, how would you best describe our brand?
In my short time at OUTA, I've discovered that OUTA is a passionate organization filled with some very, very smart people, and we're all driven by the same cause, which is to make South Africa better for everyone. The brand itself is well known for the fight against e-tolls. It was the voice, it still is the voice of the people in terms of e-tolls. But there's so much more that OUTA do that the public are not aware of. The work that's been done in Eskom, state capture, the CETAs, the upcoming ARTO battle, all things that OUTA is driving. I think that it's needed for people to be made more aware of what's happening.
I hear you. And one of the things I was curious to find out before you join the brand, because it's all good and well when you join an organization, you become part of that brand. It's you breathe it, you live it. It's something that you do every day. When you were before you joined OUTA, what was your perception of the brand?
So the brand is positioned with a very limited target market because it focused specifically on e-tolls. The biggest impact for e-tolls was specifically on people who drove cars, which is a higher LSM, higher target market. It wasn't really perceived as something that was going to impact people that rode public transport, taxis, buses, trains, etc. So the supporter base is predominantly that higher LSM. Who are vehicle owners. It needs to be perceived to reach far more because that's what they do. And I think that needs to be communicated through marketing more than press specifically, so then it has a bigger reach, so we can get into community radio stations, community newspapers, start doing some comms in vernacular, so that then it's reaching those people and not isolating the brand to just a small portion of the country.
And I absolutely agree with you. I mean, you mentioned the CETAs, you mentioned Eskom. We're definitely trying to get into projects that are much more they relate to people. It's a brand that relates to you, right? And you also highlighted some of the strategies you have actually taking the brand forward. Kudos to you on that. I think one of the things that we need to do as Outarians, and also just not just ourselves, but also our brand ambassadors, is to really take the brand to the people and understand that it's not just, like you said, the higher LSM, but it's a brand that can resonate with so many people. So please share with our supporters what their role to the OUTA brand is, or it should be.
We need a voice across the country. The more people that are speaking about OUTA and the work that we do, the more people become aware of us. And yes, it's great to have people that financially contribute and donate to our causes, and we need that to keep on fighting the battles that we fight and to take on even more, because we know how vast the corruption is in government. However, we need that voice of every South African. We need people to be suggesting to people who have stories of corruption that they need to call in, or they need to come and report those issues to OUTA. We need people to be having discussions around the work that OUTA has been doing with their kids, with their grandparents, and with their colleagues. Because the more people know about OUTA, the more we become aware of the issues that we need to address with government, and the stronger our voice becomes. The more people are talking about these issues, the more difficult it is for government to sweep it under the carpet, because it's in the public eye. I think that's what the public's role is with OUTA.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, you mentioned that they should be talking to their kids about the OUTA brand, but also, let's be honest, corruption is something that can either be, it's something that we've inherited in the last 10 years. And one of the strategies that I think as the OUTA brand, we're definitely trying to promote anti-corruption within different levels of our society, whether it be it in school, whether it be it in hospitals, whether it be it in churches or different community areas that can reach out a different audience, right? In light of that, talk to me about the strategy that you have. You talked about community radio stations. What else can we do?
So I envisage the OUTA strategy to be two-pronged. Firstly, garnering that support in terms of the voice. That's brand awareness specifically, which is pushing out content to as many different target audiences as we can in a way that they are it's easily digested by that specific market. Secondly, the strategy needs to be quite lead generation based. We need those donations. We need to increase our donations in order to increase the work that we do. So it's unusual because a lot of the time a business will either go one way or the other, brand awareness or lead generation. Here it's going to be two-pronged. I think the main focus is going to be brand awareness, and then there'll be numerous campaigns during the year that'll be focused on lead generation, where we'll be able to measure exactly how best our messages are digested, and how our supporter base is growing. But yeah, very diverse target markets, and it's going to be very interesting.
I think you're onto a nice journey. You know, I mean, I think the communications and marketing aspect within civil society organizations is quite dynamic, and it speaks to the hearts of people. I mean, it's something that you take home and you resonate with as a listener. Any parting words of encouragement you can share with our supporters or anyone listening?
Corruption is everywhere, and it's not just in government. It's in the small businesses in your town. It's all over, and you need to be aware of what's happening, because the more corruption that is out there, the more money, the more maladministration, the more it's considered okay. And as ethical South Africans, we need to be the voice saying to people, this is wrong, you know, and using the right channels to fix that corruption, because in the end, when there's corruption, people are losing out. And no South African should lose out, ever. So everybody should be focusing on fighting against corruption, and reaching out to us when they can't do it themselves.
Absolutely. We're about to take a break from our conversation, but stay tuned.
Demand good governance. Join us weekly on Inside OUTA.
Welcome back. You're tuned into Inside OUTA. Now, earlier when we were speaking, Sam, we spoke about the brand and the strategy that we have for OUTA. What is your vision for the OUTA brand?
Ultimately, I would like OUTA to be able to fight every aspect of corruption across the country, whether it be government, municipality, business, every aspect of it. But I also don't want the brand to be perceived as fighters forever. What we're doing is assisting the country. We're looking to grow and develop the country into an ethical, moral community with aligned thoughts. So we want to assist government. We want to be perceived as helping government, which I often see us as doing now. We're often called in to transport discussions, on the petrol increase and what is our input. So government are asking us for input, but we're still perceived as fighting. And that's not necessarily what we're doing. So ultimately, I'd like us to be seen as working alongside government and other businesses and municipalities to ensure that corruption is rooted out across these organizations, to ensure that we have a better South Africa where there's no corruption and there's nobody losing out and everybody's getting the most out of the country.
I get what you're saying, and I think it's more a partnership approach with government as we're walking them through, but we would still be able to crack that whip when something is going out of alignment,
Precisely.
so to speak, right? Talk to me about the Rainbow Nation brand. What is your perception of the Rainbow Nation brand, and what is the role of OUTA in expanding on that brand?
So the Rainbow Nation is South Africa.
Sure.
We are such a dynamic mix of incredible people, of different cultures, different races, different genders, different abilities. And I've always perceived differences to be strengths. That's what makes you who you are and what makes you able to do the things that you do. And when you combine all of those different strengths into a country or a nation, the capabilities and possibilities are boundless. It's about embracing that change or that the differences and understanding that they are important and that they help us. They're not a hindrance. In terms of OUTA, as I've said, it's been perceived as only focusing on one aspect of the nation. Whereas the work that we're doing filters down into all different aspects of our communities. It's just that initial perception that we need to get over, and we need to do that through different forms of communication, making sure that our messaging is targeting those people that we have left out of comms in the past. And that's the magic of marketing, is that when you change that creative and you change that messaging, you amplify the message so much better. It hasn't been hugely focused on in terms of OUTA because it hasn't been the driving force. But now it is. And I'm excited.
Well, welcome to the team. I think one of the things that you're fastly learning within the OUTA organization is that we're such a diverse team as well. All of us are outspoken. All of us are passionate about the country. So there's definitely that level of growth that you see within the brand. Can I take it back a little bit more to the conversation that you talked about, the anti-corruption watchdog? At the end of the day, we are hoping to see an end to corruption and e-tolls. And I guess that's the ultimate goal. And we should actually perhaps for now, because it is such a big thing within our country, it is something that we're focusing on. Talk to me about the continuation of OUTA beyond e-tolls, beyond corruption. Do you perceive that there's a space for OUTA within that field?
It's an ideal world, I think, to think of a world with no corruption, unfortunately. I think that as soon as you root out one element of corruption, there'll be another right behind it. And it's about staying on top of those issues and being known as the people to come to ensure that we remain on top of that, and are the people that are called upon when corruption takes place. So unfortunately, I don't see a world, not even a country, without corruption at this stage. There'll always be bad people. And as long as the good outweighs the bad, and the good voice and the ethical voice is louder than the bad, good will always overcome evil. But it will never, ever root it out.
You sound like you're speaking from the heart, and I really appreciate your time. Any parting words of encouragement you can share with our supporters or anyone listening?
Corruption is everywhere.
Sure.
And it's not just in government. It's in the small businesses in your town. It's all over. And you need to be aware of what's happening, because the more corruption that is out there, the more money, the more maladministration, the more it's considered okay. And as ethical South Africans, we need to be the voice saying to people, this is wrong, and using the right channels to fix that corruption. Because in the end, when there's corruption, people are losing out. And no South African should lose out, ever. So everybody should be focusing on fighting against corruption and reaching out to us when they can't do it themselves.
Absolutely. Well, Sam, that's been a great one. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. We look forward to having more robust conversations with you here at Inside OUTA.
Thanks for listening to Inside OUTA. Tune in next week when we delve deeper into undoing tax abuse.
Harnessing the power of talk radio. Brandlive.co.za